engines running normally, 3 good fuel cells, 3 good APUs. Good roll program confirmed. Challenger now heading downrange.
To the unforeseen eye, this appears to be an accident, but the reality remains that this traumatic experience could have been prevented. On January 26, 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger was all set to launch its 28th mission after sustaining 5 launch delays. Everything seemed all set for the launch. Morton Thiokol, a NASA contractor that is responsible for making the solid rocket boosters, initiated a teleconference call with NASA to discuss postponing the launch till the temperature increases. Unfortunately, the first mistake NASA and Thiokol made was excluding the engineers, who are experts on the parts, from being a part of the conference. The engineers knew that the solid rocket boosters could not stand the cold temperature that Florida was experiencing during the week of January 26th. The average temperature during the week was in the low 50s, with the minimum temperature to operate the solid rocket boosters being 53 degrees. Thiokol's engineers did not want to take the chance of something happening to the shuttle. Unlike the engineers, the managers of Thiokol were not thinking about the state of the shuttle. After 5 launch delays, the last thing they wanted was to risk losing NASA as a client. Thiokol's managers took a vote to decide whether to launch or not, also excluding the engineers from the vote. The managers decided with almost a unanimous decision to allow the shuttle to launch. The engineers just prayed that the temperature would increase by launch time. On Sunday, January 26, 1986, the date the Challenger was set to launch, the shuttle was delayed once more due to a mechanical error with the door hinge. The launch was postponed for the last time to the final launch date of Tuesday, January 28, 1986. The engineers' worst fears were realized when the temperature on Tuesday dipped down into the lower 20s, which was much lower than the rocket boosters could handle. One of the head engineers at NASA told the manager to call off the launch due to the low temperature, with the manager replying,
"If we don't launch now, we will not be able to launch again until April."
Against NASA and Thiokol's engineers' wishes and advice, the shuttle launched at 11:38 a.m. It wasn't long after launch before the devastating events of the day began. 0.06 milliseconds after liftoff, darkish gray puffs of smoke began escaping from the right solid rocket booster. These dark puffs of smoke were hot gas escaping through a gap in the O-rings. These puffs wore away and enlarged the gap in the O-rings. O-rings are gaskets in the solid rocket boosters that are supposed to expand with the movement of the shuttle. The cold temperature on the day of the launch prevented the rings from expanding like they were designed to. At 45 seconds into the launch, there were 3 bright flashes of fire, each coming from the Challenger's right wing. At 58.7 seconds into the flight, hot gases began leaking from the right solid rocket booster. The propellants had been leaking for some time at this point. At 60 seconds, telemetry showed that the chamber pressures were different in each booster. The right booster had a lower chamber pressure. At this point in time, NASA knew something was really wrong. There was indeed an intensifying leak in the field joint area. At 62 seconds into the launch, systems control began reacting to the differential pressures in the boosters. They lowered the pressure in the left booster to counteract for the lack of pressure in the right booster. Unfortunately, this did not solve the entire problem. The rocket booster breached the external fuel tank at 64 seconds after launch, changing the color of the plume cloud. Within 45 milliseconds of the breach, the fire from the plume began roaring down the backside of the space shuttle. At 73.12 seconds after launch, a white vapor became visible from the side of the external fuel tank. This was the beginning of the structural failure of the external fuel tank. The failure caused massive amounts of liquid hydrogen to be released, suddenly creating 2.5 million pounds of forward thrust, pushing the full hydrogen tank upwards into the inner tank. At the same time, the rocket booster impacted the inner tank structure and the lower part of the liquid oxygen tank. Both the external fuel tank and the inner tank system failed at 73.137 seconds after launch. This was confirmed by the white vapors appearing in the inner tank region. Within milliseconds, there was a massive, almost explosive burn-off of the hydrogen and the liquid oxygen in the area of the inner tank. It cannot be argued that this was a tragic loss, both for NASA and the victims' families, but from this loss spawned great reconstruction and well-needed adjustments to the NASA program. Prior to the incident, NASA and the Morton Thiokol Corporation had been working together since 1974. Despite the disaster, they could not overlook their long and overall successful history. As a result, NASA decided to continue their partnership with Morton Thiokol after the Challenger incident. Morton Thiokol, worrying about a bad reputation, decided to change their corporate name to ATK, or Alliant Tech Systems, in hopes of leaving behind their tainted reputation along with the Morton Thiokol name. ATK still produces the now redesigned rocket boosters for use on NASA shuttles. The redesign did not stop there. NASA, following Thiokol's lead, redesigned many parts of the shuttle that may have led to more problems in the future. The redesign included major rounds of improved parts for the temperamental main engines that were often viewed as risky. Other improvements included new fuel pumps, oxidizer pumps, power heads, heat exchangers, and combustion chambers. The full-scale redesign was accomplished by the year 2000 and cost an estimated amount of $1 billion. NASA also took the action of creating new and improved statistics for flight risks. Previous to the Challenger incident, NASA statistics read about a 1 in 100,000 chance of a disaster. Presently, it reads a 1 in 78 chance of a disaster during launch. It was also announced that by 2010, a new generation of spaceships would make their debut and forever revolutionize the economic and safety of space shuttles in America. There seems to be no question that despite the struggles and setbacks, NASA is putting forth an honorable effort for the improvement, innovation, and the continued American dream of reaching for the stars.